Longevity Plus would like to thank you for joining our webinar today. Our host, Dr. Garry Gordon, is an expert on nutrition, mineral metabolism, and anti-aging. He is a consultant to Longevity Plus, where he is responsible for designing effective, natural supplements that help to support optimal health. Today, Dr. Gordon will be discussing Advanced Detoxification for Infinite Wellness, Part 2. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Garry Gordon.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got a lot of material to cover. We are all living in interesting times. The only good thing that can come out of this sad, sad story of the tsunami earthquake radiation problem in Japan is that maybe it wakes people up before it's too late, because it is the toxins in our body that we are dealing with every day that we should be focused on, not the remote possibility of serious increases in our background radiation, because you always are subject to some radiation exposure. When you fly in an airplane, you get an equivalent of a chest x-ray flying from Denver to Chicago. So my message today is that yes, I can design problems to make you tougher so that you can deal with threats to our health. And these threats are going to become real because we'll all be suffering gamma radiation starting next year as the declining ozone layer exposes more and more of us to not just ultraviolet blood irradiation, because the ultraviolet blood is already showing that it's sunburning seals in the Antarctic. So yes, we will be facing serious problems, which is why I'll talk about magnetic pads that can protect people laying on these pads against gamma radiation coming from the sun with the sunspots. But I want to have everybody understand that rushing at the last minute to get iodine is part of our mentality. It seems that in this country, that unless you're a Mormon or a different kind of person, you don't realize that our country is much better off if we are all prepared to go a week or 2 weeks or a month or something, not necessarily 2 years, but if all of us have something from flashlights to a little bit of cash to something in the house from Band-Aids. I mean, the reality is that we cannot assume that things are not going to happen to us, because this is really a wake-up call, and I will try to rephrase that so you'll understand that I'm talking about earth changes. Everyone should be aware by now that the North Pole is moving, and when it moves, it's moving because one day it might become South Pole. Now, that's something that happens, we believe, every 250,000 years or so. And when it happens, a lot of earth changes do occur. So there might well be predicted that there'd be more earthquakes, not necessarily as far away as Japan. So what can we do to get prepared? Well, I can help you focus on problems that are real, that you have in your body today. We don't just have an epidemic of brain disease, autism, learning disorders, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease. We have an epidemic of toxicity, and depending on genetics and other factors, the toxicity appears in one part of your body or another. This book, written by an internist at UC San Francisco, is a classic telling you how politics is lying to you, and why FDA can't even answer a simple question, what's a safe level of mercury to have in your blood, and why when they do answer the question, it's totally different than what you get from the Environmental Protection Agency. How could two government agencies have totally different answers as to what's safe in your blood? Well, it's because politics is involved in the poisoning of everyone on the planet. Now, the poisoning is going to get to be very real, because this is the cover of the magazine On the Streets Today. And if you pick this cover up and you read what it says, China Syndrome, 1,400 tons of mercury heading your way, you will be truly frightened if you know what this means. Because this article, which is I have in my hand, about an ill wind blowing, is trying to tell you that rather than worry about something as remote as significant radioactive contamination coming from Japan, let's deal with real problems that we all now face daily that's impacting the health of every one of us and our loved ones. So if we get the understanding that mercury is directly behind neurodegenerative diseases, cancer, emphysema, even flus, when you begin to understand when the wind and weather's right, this mercury disaster that I'm about to explain to you, as written by David Kirby under the ill wind blowing, and this link will take you, if you don't want to run out and buy the magazine, and this will be back up on my website, because this is saving lives if you spread the word. Because it's going to tell you that far from wasting time buying some iodine just for radiation risk, we all need iodine every day for real problems that we all do face. But what we have to understand is that the mercury that you thought you understood, I find 99% of my doctor colleagues still don't understand this story. Why? Because the story I'm telling you is brand new. What we're telling you is that there's a problem called drought. And the size of some deserts in China have been rapidly expanding. It's called desertification. And when the winds blow, the particulate matter from those sandstorms is winding up in our pristine national parks. So some days at Yellowstone National Park you can't see across the street, and it is provably, with correct testing that is in this article, it is coming all the way from China. But it's delivering to us a whole new source of mercury. So I have doctor friends who are convinced that the main mercury they're worried about is your mouth. Well, I'm afraid that they have it wrong, because we have documentation today that if we measure the mercury in humans, until recently, within the last 6 years, when this picture is dramatically changing because of the deserts blowing dust on a jet stream that's dumping it right into you, and you're breathing it, and you cannot escape it. So let's deal with real risk, because I can help you here with zeolite and my power drink, and when I get you on oil chelation, this is an area I can help you on. And you won't have to be sick like the people around you, because there's no one today that really seems very healthy. It's the exception to be healthy, because it's tough. There's a lot of factors against us. So if the mercury is coming in, and until recently 90% of it was methyl mercury, which meant that it's been through the food chain. So you were getting it from the ocean, and you're getting it from the fish and the food that you eat. Now it is coming in directly as organic, and that's what's so frightening. So if we want to get to the iodine story, yes, I have written everything everything I've written about keeping people alive says take iodine. And I have suggested doses on page 14 of the 18-page review of my fight program that you should download and read if you want to save. Otherwise, it takes 8 hours to watch all the webinars where I teach you what is behind the 18-page summary that Scott Forsgren has, as a professional writer, having spent over 100 hours on my website, has reduced and saved you hours and hours of viewing webinars, so you have in one concise 18-page document called Dr. Gordon's Fight Program on my website by Scott Forsgren, published in Public Scrutiny, a health journal going to Lyme patients. You have my whole program, which now, when you hear today's presentation, we'll be adding magnetism to make my fight program have even stronger ability to save people no matter how advanced their health problem is. But you'll see on the bottom of this page the mention of the Environmental Working Group. This is just concerned citizens like you who've written checks out so that a group would pay for testing of people like Bill Moyer on PBS, who everybody knows since he went to China with Nixon years ago, has lived an organic life, and nonetheless he agreed to let his blood be tested, 20 tubes $4,900, Mount Sinai School of Medicine, and he's virtually as toxic as you are because you can't escape it. Eating the organic food still keeps you alive longer, but you already are toxic and you can't stop breathing. That's why I'm so upset, because the particulates are going to get you even if you had a full-time person protecting your water food. You can't stop the air. The water and the food are still a problem. But we're trying to tell you here that environmental chemicals like perchlorate, and now you're going to learn about bromine and fluorine. So iodine helps fight back against these other toxins that are halides, like fluorine, which is not your friend, and you don't want fluorine in your water, and you don't want bromine in the Mountain Dew the kids drink, because bromine has been known to cause almost schizophrenic-like breaks in young people who become crazy. How can they put it in a drink when they put 10 times more in the food, it's in the bread, it's crazy. So iodine fights back to try to save your life. So I want everybody getting iodine, but I don't want them buying willy-nilly an iodine pill to wait until they're one day from death and take it because all of a sudden somebody tells you that you're getting tremendous exposure from Japan, because that's not the way it's going to happen. That will be diluted. The problem that's happening in Tokyo will be local. It is not going to hit us, excepting, of course, there will be food supplies that will be contaminated. But that contamination is nothing compared to what I teach with my FIGHT program. You really all today have to know that if everybody listening to me wrote out a check for $4,900 and sent 20 tubes of blood to Mount Sinai School of Medicine, you'd know the amount of dioxins, PCBs, polychlorinated diphenols, and other what we call flame retardants that are in everybody listening to me. And these are what's causing us to be sick, along with the lead and mercury and the devitalized food and the deficiencies of selenium and magnesium. So bromine, you can read later. It's a problem and you don't want it. In polybrominated diphenyl ether is the flame retardant. We didn't want the children to burn up in case their pajamas in the bedroom caught fire, but now we have PBDE in every airplane, and it's in every human on the face of the earth in huge amounts, and it's along with phthalates guaranteeing us that one day we won't have an overpopulation problem. We'll be lucky to have a population at all, because sperm counts are down 40%, and that's why so many young couples are having to see a fertility specialist, because our fertility of the men and women has been seriously compromised by these toxins. Chlorine, perchlorate, and across the board, iodine helps get rid of these bad guys. And 50 milligrams for a month and 12.5 milligrams a day for a long time would be realistic, since that's what the average Japanese, who have far less of the breast cancer than we have. But my friend Mark Serkis is an acupuncturist, oriental medical doctor, and he wants you to know that we need magnesium, we need iodine, we need to be more alkaline, which for some people, baking soda has some advantages, and he's shown it. Other people, I wind up using the magnet, because the magnet helps restore alkalinity to a cell. But of course, the magnet I sleep on, which is that 100-pound pad that gives me 10 Gauss, and then I went and liked it so much I got 2 pads, so now I have 2 100-pound pads under both sides of a king-size bed, each costing $900. But now that I've gotten into PEMF, I go to 19,000 Gauss, and I actually don't need my sodium bicarbonate, because I really get all my cells to be optimally alkalinized, which means cancer is going to have a hard time of growing in my body, because when the cells are alkaline, the oxygen my blood is carrying is much more efficiently released to the cells. Now, I've said that we have low fertility, and I've said that we're having some problems with toxins in our food and devitalized food. If you can afford the right kind of supplements, as they have shown at the Bruce Ames UC Berkeley Research Institute, you can help overcome some of the what we call methylation change that is an overnight gene change that happens when you're being poisoned with certain kinds of toxins. And so what we're telling you here is that bisphenol A, the hardener in the plastic bottles we drank our water out not knowing what we were doing and that we wrap our food in, this alone has made it hard for our body to push the toxins out that I'm today raving about. The toxins, lead, mercury, and cadmium, and DDT, and dioxins, and PCBs, and all these incredible toxins that you cannot avoid. Your body is well designed to try to handle. And that's why I have a power drink, and I keep you on high-dose C, and have you on oral chelation, and I use zeolite, because I can help your body deal with this challenge. And they proved that at this study right here. They took mice, for example, but having been exposed to bisphenol A, as all of you have been exposed, all of you have 10,000 times more phthalates than you had in your body just 10 years ago, so all of you are toxic. But when we found that that made the mice all get soon to become diabetic and obese, we found that we can stop that gene change with methylation support, like trimethylglycine, methylsulfonomethane. These I put in the Beyond C, the very unique vitamin C delivery system that is part of my detoxification program, part of my power drink. But if we look at the big picture, we also have to have the methyl form of B12 and the methyl form of folic acid. So that has to be delivered to you sublingually in a different product called Beyond B12. So this is just to let you know that these Berkeley scientists at the University of California at the Ames Research Laboratory proved that even though all the mice offspring would have been diabetic and yellow and obese, they didn't stay with that gene defect from the bisphenol A, that methylation defect, if you treated with these correct nutrients. So I want methylation to ring with you today, because some people are using S-adenylmethionine to help support methylation. They're using it in depression. They're using it in many forms of what we call aberrant behavior, as well as in various cancers, to help in the defective program with methylation, choline, folic acid, B12, using the methyl form of B12 under the tongue, because what you swallow is not well absorbed, and you don't have to have a shot. Shots are fine. But not everybody can afford to go to the doctor and have B12 shots, or an IV Myers, or an IV short chelation, or even get IV vitamin C, which is useful. Any of us will have better health if we're able to afford to do some of these things intravenously. But I've been pretty happy that I've been able to find things like the S-adenylmethionine and N-acetylcysteine and zeolite and my power drink and the oral chelation and the garlic and the curcumin. There's so many things we have you can protect yourself with. Now, do you want to buy a month's supply of those to have these things at home? Because should the next disaster hit, and most people would not say should, they'll just say when the next disaster hits, you can see from the stores in Japan how rapidly everything is depleted. So since there is a good shelf life with supplements, you may want to think about how much C you'd like to own, and how much silver you want in your house, and we have two kinds of zeolite. You're going to want to have both, because if you are alive when one of these bad things happen, you're going to want to know what is the right program. And it is, I repeat, zeolite spray, and then switch to the Zeo Gold, and use the 4 ingredients in the power drink, which are maca, organic green, beyond vitamin C, and beyond fiber, because the Beyond Fiber has everything in it, including EDTA. But the BCI is still my calling card, and that's 1 capsule of omega-3 and 1 capsule of the primrose oil, and they balance each other out, and 3 of the multiple, so that the multiple has got good stuff like cesium and rubidium and all the glucan, things in it you don't find in most multiples, and then 3 of my, this is the engine of the Beyond Chelate. These are where we spent in the 60s with Dr. Morrison at the Artiscosa Research Institute $10 million to figure out what's in those 3 caps. And nobody else sells that. It's amazing. I mean, you have in there $10 million of the research that stopped people dying of heart attack. It actually works like an oral form of heparin, thinning your blood so that cancers don't metastasize and you don't get a big blood clot and die of a heart attack and stroke. And then 1 phosphatidylserine ginkgo, since you're going to live so much longer with oral chelation, we need to make sure you still have vision and a brain when you're 90. And phosphatidylserine and ginkgo is very beneficial on protecting your brain. Now, the Beyond Any multiple has, as I state, with my background having been the director of Mineral Lab, which was subsequently sold to Doctors Data, and having offices at one time in Tokyo, Amsterdam, Boston, San Francisco, I have really studied the problem of trace minerals, and I can tell you, I don't care who you are, 99% of you don't have enough of certain minerals like magnesium to meet the needs for optimal function in your body. And I assure you, with the mercury levels coming up as dramatically as the front cover of today's Discover is teaching you, you need selenium to offset mercury on top of my zeolite and my oral chelator and my power drink. So you need to understand that in this product, you're going to get the tocotrienols, the resveratrol, the K2, things that you are not going to get in a one-a-day multiple. And I have nothing against one-a-day multiple, excepting it's like you're trying to hold back a dam that's ready to burst and you've just got one finger. It's not quite enough because there's so much pressure on our bodies today. So these 3 capsules, the Essential Daily Defense, we didn't put just the EDTA in there because of the paper published in Nature in 1960 that EDTA makes heparin work by mouth. We actually found places that we could get in the ocean a heparin-like effect. And the red algae carrageenan, under certain conditions, which we mastered, we didn't just waste the $10 million, actually gave us what we could combine. And this combination then gives people the D-L-methionine to get the mercury out, the beta-cytosterol to help carry out toxins, hawthorn to help strengthen the heart, malic acid is another useful chelator, the garlic. This formula is what's the engine, the powerhouse in the oral chelation. And you can buy it by yourself because some people love their multiple, or they can only get down a multiple that's a liquid, which is fine. There's liquid multiples out there I've seen that people really love, like Vima as a power drink, and whatever is. And some people just have to modify the program to meet their needs. But please, this is my defense against the lead and the mercury and the other toxins. And in this product of the Essential Daily Defense, you're getting these additional things, the betaine, the malic acid, the methylsulfonomethane, and you'll see that all of these are detoxifiers. The betaine is really another word for trimethylglycine. Methylsulfonomethane means, methyl always means that these help your body do methylation. And bisphenol A has changed our genes so that many of us do not methylate well. And methylation, like sulfation, acetylation, oxidation, is one way the body deals with the increasing level of toxins that have been put in our water, food, and air by industry. So the D-L-methionine is useful. And it, again, helps you get rid of mercury. And you can't get rid of all the mercury. Believe me, you have mercury in your eyeballs and you have mercury in your heart and your kidney today. You can't avoid it because I've tried to show you that there's tons of it in the air. And we all are not yet going to start to want to wear an inhaler. And even if you did, you'd still have to be eating food and drinking liquid. And to have a totally mercury-free food is not possible, virtually. And so beta-cytosterol, this is actually works in the body to help fat-soluble toxins leave the body. So if I'm detoxing you, which I do to everybody every day of their life, the toxins, when I detox you with oral chelators and all of the use of the zeolite, etc., the toxins get dumped through the liver into the intestine. But if you don't have my power drink, slightly heaping teaspoon of the maca, the Beyond Fiber, the Organic Green, and the Beyond C. If you don't have that in there to help tie up the toxins, those toxins will be reabsorbed, and it will merely mean the mercury in your left eye got moved to your right eye. So please understand that there's reasons for each step of what I'm doing here, and all of these steps are synergistic, assuring you of a good outcome. So the carrageenan is where we found our heparin-like effect, and the papain and the horsetail and the red yeast. There's a lot to stopping heart attacks. Remember, I still tell everybody that I have not yet received the phone call of a patient on Beyond Chelation Improved 9 pills in that packet twice a day. I have not ever had the phone call that somebody says, gee, your stuff didn't work. Dad died last night, or I had 2 patients die last week. I have not received those kind of phone calls. So since I've been doing this for 10 years or 15 or 20 years now, you would think that if it wasn't working, I'd start to hear somebody saying, Dr. Gordon, it's not working anymore. We're all too toxic. Well, so far, I do admit that I add the power drink over the year because we're so toxic, and I've developed a zeolite because I feel that even though I've been lucky in the 35 years since I first brought out this whole idea of the so-called oral detox program, that we haven't had fatal heart attacks and strokes, and I've gotten rather confident, so I canceled bypass surgery on people no matter how blocked their arteries are, because I tell them, since I haven't lost anybody, and they do kill people on the operating table, you may want to just flip a coin and see if you want to bet your life on what Dr. Gordon is telling you. But if you're going to live all those years longer, let's get the nasty, nasty stuff out so that you know your last name when you're 90. Who wants to be alive and be in a rest home? I want to be a vigorous 90. I'm 76 and I'm getting younger by the week, I can assure you. But that's because I developed the fight program, so I tend to follow it. I'm on 37 different supplements every day, most of them twice a day. And I do exercise, and I spend time in far infrared saunas. And I now have the pulsed electromagnetic field device that allows me to get treated 10 minutes twice a day on top of sleeping on the heavy magnetical sleep pad that is giving me 20 Gauss. So I admit that most people couldn't or wouldn't do what I do. But when you realize that the average person in America, when they get close to death, spends most of the money that they've spent on their health, gets spent in the final 6 months to 18 months of life, desperately wanting to stay alive for one more lousy day when they can't breathe, they can't think, and they never spent that money, ever would spend anything like that kind of money. Nobody would spend $100,000 on their health when they're 40 or 50 unless they were diagnosed as inoperable cancer. But we tend to spend that on a lot of people in the final months of life. Beyond Fiber makes sure that you don't get there. Beyond Fiber is my calling card, because in here you have the beta-sitosterol, octocosonol, gamma-oryzanol. You've got in here organic form of artichoke that makes it a perfect combination of what we call soluble and insoluble. And that's critical in terms of its ability to help carry toxins out of your body, because believe me, when you're on my zeolite and you're doing all the Beyond Power drink that I advocate, toxins are mobilized, which is the only reason all these people tell me how much better they are. And now that we have PEMF, the pulsed electromagnetic field device, which admittedly expensive at $20,000, $500 a month to lease it, isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea unless they band together and have a family or a neighbor that they share the device with. So each one pays $250 a month, and each one has it on 1 week, off 1 week. We've got to be creative, because the earth is not going to make it easy for us. The earth is taking away the electromagnetic field that is required for us to convert our glucose and oxygen into nutrients. Beyond Fiber is truly a major step. Rice bran that's in here is the most nutrient-dense food that you can buy. It has inositol and gamma-oryzanol and octocosonol and beta-sitosterol. You cannot believe what's in here. And I don't go a day all these years without it ever since I learned about it, and my horses take it. But the organic green, I don't have to convince you. Most of you know that the green is magnesium, it's chlorophyll, it's a detoxifier. So we have organic seeds, cereal, we have vegetables, and we have the sea vegetable, spirulina. So whichever one you think is the right one, I have them all. Why argue? Why not take it all? Because it all works. And that's why I'm getting younger. But remember, I've combined this program that we're now discussing with the PMF, which has never been combined before. If you look at the literature, the fact that Yale, Stanford, and UCLA are using NeuroStar, the PEMF, to treat brain disease, particularly resistant depression that fails to respond to normal drug and other therapies, the fact that they're doing that with PEMF, they don't know anything about detoxifying people, and they've never recommended a nutrient in their life. So the last thing they're going to tell you is you don't need vitamins. It's all in your diet. How can it be in your diet if the farmer isn't paid to put the nutrients back in the soil that are washed out? It's not in your diet. So Bioenergy C is what is used at all the leading cancer clinics, and it is my vitamin C delivery system that is stomach friendly, so that no matter how ill you are, most people can tolerate easily a slightly heaping teaspoon 1, 2, or 3 times a day, and each slightly heaping teaspoon gives you 4,000 milligrams. So if you're doing it 3 times a day, which is a really good dose for people who are serious about detoxing, although some days I get busy and I may only have 2 teaspoons or 8,000 milligrams, but when I'm pushing the envelope pretty hard because I'm traveling, I'll be up to 16 or 4 teaspoons. But I can prove this way by people testing with this little stick in this jar, and they're 20 cents a stick, and it is a C. It's not a pH test. This is not a test of pH. This is how much actual vitamin C is in your urine. Now, you can't have a lot of C in the urine unless you have a lot in the blood. And there wouldn't be a lot in the blood unless the product was absorbed. So this is an easy way to get people to stop buying cheap vitamin C, because this is the most expensive vitamin C you can find. This is $40 retail. You can't find anything like that, but it keeps you in the optimal range so that you have the best chance of the longest survival, because if you're excreting C, vitamin C is a chelating agent like my ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, EDTA, that my protocol has treated 10 million people in the vein, which is 100% absorbed, and that's why we do vitamin C in the vein too. We like 100% absorption, but that takes money and time. So we just wanted the best I could do by mouth, and that's what we developed. And that's why we have the Zeo Gold product. The Zeo Gold, absolutely, there's nothing like it on the market. You have in each capsule, which is a pre-measured dose, and the capsules must be broken open, either cut or forced open, to get the contents into water, because it needs water before it goes into your stomach for its optimal effect to help toxins leave your body. But it has in it the most advanced form of micronized hydrocolloidal zeolite, combined with humic acid, combined with the stabilized all-R form of lipoic acid, combined with the advanced vitamin C, so that you have some of that methylation support. And when you put all that into one product, including the glutathione, now you have a very superior answer, because most people cannot afford to do total body hyperthermia, which is what we do in Germany now. When you have an impossible cancer, we will cook your body at 107. And if you have prostate cancer, it's in your lungs, it's in your bones, and maybe already in your liver, your brain, you're going to die in a week. If we cook you with that hyperthermia, many people get up the next day, they're out of pain, and they have a big appetite. It doesn't do that to all forms of cancer, but it's good for you to know that I'm trying to compare how many toxins can I get out by cooking you versus how many hours you need to sit in a sauna. When we do the Hubbard therapy on workers that were exposed in 9/11, we put them in the Hubbard far infrared sauna, and we have them there 8 to 10 hours a day for 1, 2, or 3 months while taking all these nutritional things, because they, working on 9/11, trying to save lives, really poisoned themselves. But here I have in one capsule things that can do more than we could ever do before. So this is far more rational to be having this stocked up in the house, so that if the worst should happen, you're not out late at night trying to find somebody who has a pill of potassium iodide. And we know that zeolite, which we have as the liquid, and the liquid is where I start people so they don't get a cleansing Herxheimer-like reaction. And if I give you the liquid, you just spray the bottle the first day. If it's a baby, just give 1 spray. And then the next day, do 1 spray twice a day. If it's a 6-pound puppy, the same thing. But then as you, an adult, you start, but you rapidly follow instructions, and soon you're up to 5, 10, then 15 drops, 2, then 3, then 4 times a day. And you go through 3 or 4 bottles of this, saving some to always have in the house. in case you get something nasty on the skin that won't heal. You spray this because zeolite sucks and pulls the toxins out, even if it's on your horse or your own body. But this is good stuff. And this is the silver that goes with it, because the silver takes care of the infection component that helps our blood get too thick. And when our blood is too thick, we don't do the effective job of getting all the blood to go through the toe and the brain and the eye and the kidney and the intestine, so we don't get toxins out as well. So if I can keep your level of infections like candida, yeast, or XMRV, or cytomegalic, or chlamydia, or mycoplasma, I assure you, if I did tests that I just mentioned on those listening in this audience, none of you would be free of a thing. It may not be Lyme, but it very well will be XMRV or chlamydia or CMV or candida. So just remember, this is how I lower the titer, whether you have Staph aureus or Candida albicans or methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. I know our business. And in minutes, this product, compared to the competitors on the market that take forever to get the same effect. So are you going to hold it in your mouth before you swallow it for an hour when you've got something bad? No. But all of us will hold it for 2 or 3 minutes. And that's enough to get rid of the stuff in your mouth, which contributes to the bad guys, fungi, bacteria, and virus that are in our bodies that help bring us down. So I want to bring you all back up. And how am I going to bring you back up? Well, we're going to need magnetism. And the Earth is taking it away. Where does it come from? Well, you have a molten iron core at the center of the Earth. And that's required. And if that was to cool too much, that might be why Mars has no longer got a magnetic field and became a dead planet. All we know for sure is that researchers all agree that our magnetism is collapsing. So the field that we believe, because our research shows how sick you get when we take away the magnetic field, but if you don't have a magnetic field around you, you are not able to metabolize all the supplements you take or even get the full use of the food that you eat. So how are we going to supplement the magnetism that the Earth is taking away? Well, I've mentioned using a magnetic pad, and we're talking about how to use PEMF. A lot of this can be life-saving for people that don't know what else to do, because I'm really picking on the standard cancer approach in this country. I'm telling people flat out that it is not doing what it is proposed to do. And if you have any kind of cancer, if you look at what Cancer Treatment Centers of America do, or Oasis of Hope is doing in Tijuana, or you look at what Dr. Dawes, in fact, we have a DVD now that has been put under maxawareness.com that can play and get a DVD that teach you what the leading cancer clinics are doing and what their statistics are, so that you know that although they are not gods and they don't keep every single case of advanced cancer alive, in every case, how long the patient lives and the quality of life while they're alive is far greater when they're lucky enough to be doing these strange things. But no one has ever put together all the things that I'm putting together in this presentation to you, because it takes a lot of time to understand the physics is going to control the biochemistry. So what I'm telling you now is the Earth is lost. It's no longer 80% that's lost. It's more like 98% of the magnetic field is dropped over the last 4,000 years, and there's all the references for it. So I'm telling you that it's as though you had a house that was designed for 240 volts and you went to 110, and now you're trying to keep the house running on 60 volts. Across the board, your house isn't going to run well when the voltage is starved from what it was meant to be. And we can prove to you with this study from January of 2009 that your immune system is knocking down. It's closing down. It can't deal with a low magnetic field. It needs a healthy magnetic field for the optimal level of energy in cells. The energy in a cell is measurable biochemically with measurements of adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And you can support that, and I'm now giving an awful lot of ribose to a lot of the patients that I treat, because it turns out that we now find that when you have heart failure, and a lot of people die of this because somebody didn't tell them they need to buy ribose and get 1 teaspoon 2 or 3 times a day, slightly heaping. Why would it save a life? It's just a sugar, but it's a 5-carbon sugar, and it goes into the auxiliary power supply to the heart. And why do I make a deal of that with PEMF? Well, the PEMF is releasing so many toxins in people that we can only let newcomers use the device pulse electromagnetic field on their body for a maximum of 9 to 12 minutes for the first several days before they try to increase those times, because even though they often see pain go away dramatically, shoulders that we're going to be operated on, knees that we're going to be operated, back pain, people haven't eaten for days because their cancer, the pain is, we see dramatic results, but we didn't cure anything. We just started a process, and it needs to be repeated. But when you start dumping all those toxins out, you want to know about what can you do with things like ribose to raise the energy so that you can get some of these things. Now, I only put this article up just to let you know that we're kind of slow in medicine to move into the physics, and physics wasn't my favorite subject. I was much more, like others, more inclined to study what we could do biochemically. So now they have an idea that they're going to blast cancer cells apart in glioblastomas with electricity, which I'm interested in because it's one more adjunct with these very serious brain tumors, glioblastoma. But I'm trying to move people beyond that into what do we know for sure. The NeuroStar is FDA approved, and it's at Yale and at Stanford and at UCLA, and it is treating today, approved for resistant depression, but they're using it now for some schizophrenia and autism and Alzheimer's in different cases. And I can assure you, even though the device only allows you to treat the brain, the device is not set up to treat your leg and your liver, your kidney, and your bad foot. I like the current one. This, by the way, is $60,000, and it's FDA approved, and patients pay about $200 to sit in the treatment for a short period of time in office, and they do need about 6 weeks. And the reason I believe it's working is because after 6 weeks, the brain has made new neural connections, and you're getting new stem cells. Now, stem cells are real, folks. Even taking them out of the fat from your own body and re-injecting them back in. I have doctor colleagues who are really gratified by the results they're getting. And that's taking away a lot of the risk that you're being lied to, that you're getting no stem cells. That takes away a lot of the risk of something not lining up between the donor. But I just want to tell you that it's really neat because I don't have to stick needles and take fat out and spin it down and do things, because when I'm dealing with the unique PEMF.US/info device, and the /info lets you see the really interesting YouTubes of a patient with Parkinson that gets up and moves much better after one treatment, or a 18-year-old autism cerebral palsy patient who had never been able to make one single sentence in his life, after 6 weeks of being treated 2 and 3 times a week, was able to give a lecture, and the lady with Guillain-Barré that gets out of the wheelchair. So these are all interesting that you can watch on YouTube by going to PEMF.US/info. So when you add the nutrients that I'm doing, the picture gets even more exciting. So I want to have everybody know that I don't care what's wrong with the patient. If they could afford it, I would be doing my fight program and my PEMF on people who could be as close as 1 or 2 weeks away from death. Why am I getting so brazen to take somebody who's already maybe in hospice? Well, Harvard Medical School did the study 6 weeks ago on the mice that were nearly dead, and all they did is put a growth factor that, guess what? They got it from a synthetic form of estrogen called tamoxifen, but I have a natural form of estrogen that is called, amazingly enough, just Pueraria mirifica, or herbal remedy from Thailand. And this substance is absolutely showing the lowest incidence of breast cancer in the world in northern Thailand because it's part of the diet. But they also live a long time, and they don't have broken bones, and the men don't get up at night to pee with their prostate. So I take this so-called alternative to Premarin for menopause, which I'm emphasizing here today because we live in a toxic world. And if you can find something from a plant-based, this is a phyto-based form of an alternative to standard prescriptions for what we call bioidentical hormone therapy. But I want to make it sure that you look at this whole idea of, I've mentioned the sublingual B12, and I've talked about taking more vitamin D, and I've told you that the capsules need to be taken, of people getting the fish oil as well as the primrose oil. I've pretty outlined a lot of this in the presentation, and you can look at it at your leisure. But I want to make sure that you understand there's a lot of science published about just going through the brain without having to drill a hole in the brain that they're going to do here at the Barrows Institute in Phoenix, Arizona. They're actually going to put in electrodes and have drilling holes in your brain. Well, why? They're too late. It's already been proven that you don't need a hole and you don't need to have electrode. It's already shown that this stuff that is working, and the PEMF that I'm showing you comes in the FDA-approved version, Neurostar, and the unapproved version, PEMF.US, which is 1/3 the price and has much greater flexibility. So I just want to make sure that everybody is fully aware of the benefit is largely when you think it's impossible that you could improve that prostate or that kidney or that liver or that brain, you think it's too late. It doesn't seem to be too late, because what they showed at Harvard is when they added the tamoxifen, these mice that were within days of death started growing all of the new brain cells, everything, because it turns out there's a lot of stuff to this story. So please understand that we live in very perilous times. Knowledge is power, and I'm trying to share that power with you. This is what I have at home, so it's got the big wheel so I can go out to the barn and treat my horse who came in 3rd place. Having only been doing Grand Prix show jumping for a year, we think that is spectacular. And somebody is so impressed with him, they're buying him today. But this is the kind of thing that's changing lives, and this is the office model. They do the exact same thing, and they are working on the General Electric field. And if you're getting acupuncture, we would like you to be treated with these devices and just lay on a pad, because the acupuncture will do much more. And if you can't afford that, then at least have the Bonley Magnetico Sleep Pad. So we know that we can help heal the nerves and help the body overcome chemical reactions, so you'll be tougher even if they do wind up with a lot of radioactive fallout. The ones that always succumb are the weaker ones, and those who are lucky enough to have listened and started to combine my fight program with other things, because with the magnetic field, you get dilation of blood vessels, you lower the inflammation, you stop the spasm in the gut with the ulcerative colitis and the Crohn's. You accelerate the healing process, so if they've had an injury, they can sometimes be back at their sport in 2 weeks when otherwise they may have needed a year in a cast. And reduce the bruising, and it's pretty exciting what's going on. So myosin phosphorylation is turned on. That means we're turning on energy in the muscle cells so you can do more. So if you don't have the energy to exercise today, maybe magnetism will help you bring that. And if you have the energy to exercise, then maybe you'll get into the far infrared sauna and do some sweating, and toxins will leave. And I don't need all the toxins out overnight. I can neutralize the bad guys with my power drink, zeolite, and my beyond chelation. And across the board, by neutralizing the bad guys, they will continue to be removed, because I will give you more detox than is coming in, even if they have polluted our air, as it appears now that they are seriously doing. So the magnetic field allows the membrane to take in the nutrients that you've been swallowing and haven't been getting as much benefit as you hoped for. So the PEMF works because it takes oxygen and nutrients, and it lets them start to go. And remember, the PEMF is by making the cells in your body overnight become alkaline. That means the oxygen levels soar. And when the oxygen levels soar, the nutrients can start to be used, and the cell energy goes up, the ATP goes up, and you've got the energy to win the game or to live longer. And it's going to help us reduce swelling. It's going to help. We even have the ability to stop incontinence in women, and take and cancel a lot of the knee surgeries and hip surgeries. It's beyond belief, because actually when you combine my fight program with this PEMF, you're doing magic, because electroporation means that the cell has got the transmembrane potential to allow it to suck up all the nutrients that I have you swallow. And nobody takes as many nutrients as I do, but I wasn't getting younger by the week doing that for many years until I added the PMF. But at least I was doing good considering the genetic defects and problems I've had with a health history of having been in serious problem by age 29, having to close my medical practice, disabling angina, never able to participate in sports, and so mercury toxic, I was never coordinated, and had a brain that was so bad at one point I could not tell you when I read a page in a book what was on the page. So I think there's hope for a lot of us. And we're going to be having more information in future talks. We had, at my energy conference, we had Bill Pollack there, and he has written a review with another author of the literature coming from East Europe, where what we're telling you about is all old hat. I mean, our government 20 years ago approved PEMF for healing a non-healing fracture. Even if you'd been 3 years and your bone never knit, you could still use PEMF over that area and the bone would come back to life. So I think there's a chance I can bring a lot of people back to life because I'm raising ATP, that's the cellular energy thing, so that the pump is letting the bad stuff go out of the cell and the good stuff. But you've got to understand that's why I'm pushing on you so hard, that not just drinking a gallon of water, which is a great idea, and getting in a far infrared sauna and sweating, which is a wonderful idea, and even putting my EDTA into bath water so we can get your skin to release the toxins that get caught in the skin, because the skin is trying to get rid of mercury. That's why I love the far infrared sauna. But magnetochelation is what happens when you are sleeping on a bodily pad, and you enhance the ability of these cells to take in the good guys and expel the bad guys. These are the mitochondria. This is the power part of the cell where all energy conversion from the glucose, oxygen, and nutrients occurs. So this is the actual facts. We can prove that we saw these big dramatic increases even without an oral chelator of arsenic, lead, mercury, if you're sleeping on the pad, and if we wound up using something like my zeolite oral chelation or dimethylsuccinic acid at bedtime, we see big increases in the lead, mercury, and other toxins. So this is what Dr. Pollack has available, and this is able to be purchased at the website PEMF.us. And again, /info lets you have access to lots of information. But there's so many studies have been done that this just reviews hundreds of studies about bronchitis and COPD and fractures and limb grafts, and there isn't anything that hasn't been treated. So does it help pain? Answer is yes. Is pain disabling? Are people dying because they take a non-steroidal and it causes them to bleed internally? They die because of their pain? Yes. Can we help? Answer is dramatically in so many cases that I can't believe it. And so what we tell people is that these headaches and back pains, it's by the time people get to 30, almost everybody has pain in some part of their body. So it would be wise, eventually we'll have to have families lease a machine for $500 a month and then have one part of the family have it for a week and another part of the family for another week. Everybody is subject to injuries. Soft tissue injuries dramatically, almost overnight, heal, and I feel bad when I can't get everybody treated. This lady, look at that hand. It was all just fluid. A ring wouldn't fit. 3 hours after a 5-minute treatment with a PEMF, there is a total dramatic change. This is the kind of thing that's got me kind of excited. So detoxification is still a lifetime program. The lead you're born with is 1,000 times too high in everybody's bone when every child on earth today. And you take about 15 years as an adult to remodel bones, so there's nothing I have that sucks it out overnight. But if you're on the power drink zeolite, the high dose C, and using the beyond chelation, you will be pushing out more lead each day than comes in, unless what's happening in China with the desertification gets far worse. But at the moment, I can still win the fight even without IVs. The IV will not take it out of your bones. But it makes you feel better because all of a sudden your heart and kidney and eyes don't have all that lead, mercury, and cadmium. But I can get much of that effect orally with the advanced products that Longevity Plus carries that makes them available to you, and your review of this simple 20-page document might just add years to your life and life to your years. Health professionals, we're well over 3,000 now, who get my daily updates so that I remind you what to do with autism, ADHD, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, insomnia, because we have answers and we share those answers at no cost to health professionals who go to gordonresearch.com, scroll down and tell us who they are, and then we screen them and approve them, and they join FACT, where they get 3 emails from me each day to help build the knowledge base that you need if you're going to be a leading practitioner in a world in which knowledge is doubling every 2 years. I hope that you will understand the FIGHT program, and I hope that you will all enjoy good health. And we're now going to look and see if we have a question or two. Is it important to separate the use of EDTA and other chelators from the mineral magnesium? The answer is, it is not important, because all the success that I have received in the 10 million people that we've treated with my protocol, which is now being studied by the National Institute of Health under the name Trial to Assess Chelation Therapy, we put the magnesium in the bottle with EDTA. And we have been successful, and now I've separated it, and I use just calcium EDTA, and I either mix in the Meyer cocktail with magnesium, or I give one and then follow it immediately later with the Meyer cocktail with the magnesium. So separating has not been a problem, but everybody will go get crazy because I have everyone that I talk to has to be on acidophilus. I get everybody chiodophilus 9. I do that because we have all this unfortunate genetically modified food that you cannot avoid. It's in the soy, it's in the corn, it's in the rice. They've wrecked our nation, and the net result is that food, they call it food, actually has its own pesticide in it, and that pesticide is going to disrupt the normal flora of your intestine. And so since I cannot raise all my own food in my backyard, I still eat food that I buy at a store, which means that I take my power drink, because in there is the fiber, and that fiber and the Beyond Fiber feeds and supports healthy flora, but you need to take each day an acidophilus. Now, what are you going to do? Because I've shown you in today's presentation the jars of spray silver, along with the spray zeolite that is later replaced by the capsules of zeolite, zeogold, that have to be opened. When you spray silver, I wouldn't take the silver at the same time I took my expensive acidophilus. I would separate them at least by 4 or 5 hours. That's one thing I would separate. But when you're talking about separating things, technically you could say that zinc should be taken separate from copper, and technically magnesium could be taken separate from calcium. But the minute we try to get into that game, we're busy human beings, and the body somehow muddles through. But there'll be a new field called chronobiology when the day will come that we will know for some people that what we're treating them with may work far better if it's given at 9 p.m. or might work much better at 4 a.m. So we have much more to learn. What can I say about the relationship of excess iron to vitamin C? It is true. Ingesting vitamin C every day reduces it to make it more easy for my body to absorb iron. So that can be a blessing or a curse. And so I haven't been able to overcome that problem. And so technically when I test patients and accept new patients and do their blood test, I am always measuring total iron binding capacity, serum iron, and ferritin to find out which category you're in, because there's so many women having babies and children being born who are iron deficient and need iron. And so iron is not in any of the multiple that is sold by Longevity Plus, because I agree with the person submitting the question. We tend to look at having too much iron as being almost similar to having too much lead or mercury. So it would sound as though taking vitamin C, as I do every day of my life, must be shooting myself in the foot, because it must assume then that I'd be pushing my iron levels too high. Well, the bottom line is that doesn't happen, because I'm not eating that much meat or other sources of iron. And the main source that we see in iron is the multiple that unfortunately men keep swallowing a multiple, and it has iron in it, and they don't have menstrual periods. So we do try to get them on my kind of multiple, beyond any multiple. BAM is the Cadillac of all multiples, and we sell it alone for people who cannot afford to get the 9 pills in the package called Beyond Chelation Improved. But I don't have an easy answer to this, and in fact, we have patients who have known iron overload like hemochromatosis, hemosiderosis, and we've been lucky to help them using nutritional therapies entirely. One of them used to have his blood taken every 2 weeks just to get the blood out because it was so thick and so much. But we've been able to eliminate that problem using things like Moldenzyme and other nutritional products. Does the PEMF go through the walls of the office when treating patients? And does everybody get effects? We have not proven that, but it is hypothesized that a PEMF has got a field around it, but that field drops dramatically so that when I'm treating myself, I really feel it primarily in the area that I'm applying it to. But I have not seen the data to show how much it is, but the very good question. We've always known, for example, on the pads, the Bondley Magnetical Sleep Pad, there's been discrepancies where one group says, well, it only has a field that goes up 2 feet, and another group says, no, they think you can still detect it 10 feet above the pad. And so next thing, I'm astonished at the number of diseases that seem to have an excess iron in the literature. Since you paid a lot of attention to iron, could you please say something about it? Would PEMF help detox excess iron as well as heavy metals? I have no proof. I haven't looked into it. I tend to think that the cells have innate wisdom. And when they feel good, I tend to think the cells will reach their ultimate balance. And I do think the question by this person is, would PEMF help overcome iron overload? I have no proof of that. So I tend to use things like the Rutosid, R-U-T-O-S-I-D, that I find in Wobenzyme, and I tend to have patients who have serious iron overload using that as a safe form of an oral chelator, along with the product called Essential Daily Defense with the garlic, the D-L-methionine, and the EDTA that's in that product, because it is my favorite product. Because remember, I haven't had a patient die of a heart attack in over 20 plus years. I cancel surgery on anybody, even if they're 90% blocked in the main artery. I tell every patient that in my experience, I haven't lost anybody, and since the surgeon does have an occasional death on the table, or leaves somebody without a memory and other things, since they carry risk and I don't risk, the only thing is you're betting your life that maybe Dr. Gordon's right, maybe he's wrong. But I've been extremely successful, and it's because they have the story all wrong. They're not even, the cholesterol story is a myth. The only cholesterol you care about is oxidized cholesterol. But they don't tell you that. There's only one lab that measures oxidized cholesterol. If you want to practice really fancy medicine, you have to understand that we don't need angiograms on anybody. I used to be in radiology. It's a racket. You don't know from an angiogram who needs surgery and who doesn't. It doesn't tell you what the blood flow is. You have to understand medicine it is today is really not state of the art. And we all know that to get a PET scan, which is expensive and your insurance doesn't want to pay the $2,000, you'll accurately know which cell in your heart really is lacking fuel. And you'll really have data. That doesn't mean, again, that you need surgery, because you wouldn't want to do surgery until you do my program. Since I'm pretty good at getting people's angina to go away by thinning the blood, and we have proof that just garlic in the form of the Wakanuga product that is called Kyolic with arginine, studied at UCLA by the head of cardiology, Dr. Budoff, proved that that alone is reversing the plaque on people's arteries. And we've just had Dr. Mehmet Oz with Michael Rosen present a case at a conference I attended 3 weeks ago, in which the man came in with disabling angina and a high-grade blockage in his left anterior descending that every hungry cardiologist in the country would have said, you're a heart attack waiting to happen, you got to be on the operating table in the morning. That's a lie. They don't. They don't need it. They're drumming up business, because they put this patient on the meditation, changed the diet, changed the exercise, just got him on the right supplements, and absolutely 6 months later, the blockage in the artery was virtually gone. So people are being operated on needlessly, and the orthopods are going to hate PEMF because people mainly get the surgery on the back. The orthopod knows he can't help with surgery. I've heard the top orthopod at NYU Medical Center on the doctor radio tell people that he's never seen a back that's in pain that he couldn't make much worse by operating. So why don't we do everything that's non-interventional, not risky, and try that before we do the crazy stuff. Of course, the problem is that everything I talk about is not covered by insurance, so people are going to be seduced by the so-called free stuff, and they'll get the chemo and the radiation and the surgery when, if they really read up on it and looked at the odds, that obviously the non-traditional approach would have been much more useful in extending their lifespan and maintaining a high quality of life. Can I say anything about the appropriate balance of calcium and magnesium? I have everyone that I treat has to be on at least equal levels of calcium and magnesium. That's what's in the Beyond Any multiple, which is the 3 yellow tablets, which are the key part of replenishing the good stuff when you're on Beyond Chelation Improve. We want everybody on BCI always replacing, because I'm taking bad stuff out with the oral chelators, D-L-methionine, garlic, and the EDTA. So I always want the good stuff coming back in, cesium, rubidium, so I do that with Beyond Any multiple. It's a very special program. Knock on wood, we have nobody calling saying Dad died, and Dad may have had an 80 or 90% blockage, so we're pretty lucky. Do you use ACS and zeolite at the same time? Yes, they can be taken 2 minutes apart or 3 minutes apart or in the mouth at the same time. There's actually somebody patented them and put them together. Does the PEMF go through walls treating patients, and does everybody feel an effect? I do not think the effect is that pronounced that everybody is responding it. Does zeolite work more effectively than activated charcoal? It's a little bit like a wheelbarrow and a Learjet. They're both a method of transportation. So they can always take activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is cheap and something to have in the house in case somebody gets poisoned. And there's nothing wrong with having it in the house. I wouldn't be taking it day in and day out as I do the zeolite, because zeolite, as you will learn, speak to customer service at Longevity Plus. Whether you talk to Deanna or James or Sandy or Sandra, they'll bring you up to date on zeolite. There's so much more to know about zeolite. I have a website called zeoliteanswer.com where I've placed several of the thousands of research papers that exist to try to let you know. Or you can go on Amazon and put in the word handbook on zeolite, and you can get a $250 textbook, and you don't have to buy it. They let you read the pages free of charge. You just can't download it. So you could read the chapter with about 120 references about human applications of zeolite, or you can watch my zeolite lectures, the webinars, at gordonresearch.com. Again, thank you, everybody, for your participation. We, next week, are going to really knock it out of the ballpark. We're going to have Marcus Friedelin, and he's going to be our guest. And he has spent 2 years looking at all the leading alternative cancer centers in the world, and he's reduced it all to a 2-hour DVD that you're going to want to own, because a world without cancer is here now. You just didn't know how. Look forward to all of you being with us again next week, and thank you again for your participation with us today. Dr. Garry Gordon signing off.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. We apologize for the technical difficulties during the presentation. Please note the webinar will be posted on Dr. Gordon's website, www.gordonresearch.com. The products that Dr. Gordon has formulated are available through Longevity Plus. Please visit our website at www.longevityplus.com or call 800-580-7587 to place your order. We value all of you, and thank you for joining us.